Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's me, Savage Bruski, and I've decided, with the help of my friend Paddy from Paddy's Parlor Games, we are going to get going on a couple of fun adventures, one of them being a podcast. So welcome to the very first inaugural premiere, first, one time only, the Savage Bruski Show with Patio Cakes.
Good evening, folks.
All right, so here we be. I think we'll get into some introductions. Paddy, why don't you guess first? Why don't you let the fine people know who you are, what you're about, and where to find you?
Absolutely. So hello, everybody. I'm Paddy of Paddy's Parlor Games. I am a tabletop games writer and player. I play a lot. I paint minis. I make terrain, dungeon tiles. You can find me at the Twitter at Paddy O Cakes. That's Paddy O Cakes. It's important that you don't forget the H in there because I've done that before.
Yeah, you've got to have the O in there, as in, oh my God, this is a good game.
Thank goodness.
Yes, indeed. I honestly, I'm just gonna say, I think Paddy has undersold himself. He is a very talented writer and illustrator. I've been on a number of his live streams on Facebook, and he does a really good job bringing to life his environments, his universes, his characters, and his games. One of which I have You're very welcome, buddy. Yeah, one of which I'm going through and helping with proofreads and edits on right now, and it's a gem. It's an awesome little skirmish game. It's a very grunge post-apocalyptic type feel. It's really weird because I was playing Borderlands the other day, and I was like, this actually, it kind of reminds me of Borderlands. Like, this would be a tabletop version of that, or it could be, but it's awesome. So seriously, talented individual. Definitely check out his Twitter, his Facebook. You're going to see some really cool stuff coming out in the near future.
Thanks. Yeah, it's the Borderlands was a heavy inspiration. I played a lot of Borderlands.
It's definitely a fun game, and I could see that, that you really you brought elements, and I was literally like, this is kind of like this is kind of like that, and it communicates well. It's a great little rule set coming out fairly soon.
Yes. So what about yourself?
Well, yeah, if you're on this channel, you probably know a lot about me, but if this is your first time tuning in, I am Savage Bruski. I am a tabletop gamer. I am a YouTube and Instagram content creator. I'm not so much into the writing and creating end of things, but I do a lot in the way of how-to. I dare say I'm probably in a bit of a niche of terrain and crafting, and I've got a bit of a reputation in certain areas being more of a tactics and army list and composition type guy. The goal of which was really, just help people get into the game and help people hobby. That was the original motivation there. So
you forgot absolute sweetheart.
Oh, stop.
And how tall are you? Like 7 feet?
Oh,
just a giant among men.
Yeah, Thor, that little pipsqueak. No, I am I'm only 6'4". I probably was 6'5", with my combat boots on, but yeah, I'm up there. I'm definitely feeling the Viking, the Swedish genes, even though I don't have very many of them in me.
So we were talking about a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight, and personal introductions. I mean, we can expound on that all night, I'm sure.
Absolutely. But no, we're going to get into some of our first inspirations in the hobby and different things that got us really inspired to launch and dive into gaming headlong as we have. And, we're probably going to find in the next half hour to an hour that there were various things, and they're a little bit different for both. But let's just cut right to it. Paddy, what got you into the hobby, into tabletop gaming?
So my first foray was introduced to me by my papa, who is my stepdad, but that's the man who helped raise me. So that's my dad. He introduced me to advanced D&D, the one with the old Moloch cover with the thieves stealing the ruby eyes and a bunch of goblins slaughtered onto the altar. My very first session, I think I was playing a half-elf fighter, and I got killed. But I hungered for more. Oh man, did I hunger for more. And then we slowly made our way into 3.5, because when he realized how much I liked it and that we could share that together, he's like, okay, we're going to dive headfirst into this thing. And then I was like, oh, cool. Well, I'm going to make terrain because one of my favorite sections about the 3.5 book was the combat section. I loved how crunchy it was. I used to have every rule for grappling down to a T. And then, I kind of grew up and I fell out of it when I moved away, got into Magic. And then again, one of the days I just walked in and fell into Warhammer 40K, as most of us do.
Indeed.
Had a little bit of a first girlfriend with that until she broke my heart, and then fell deeply in love with the love of my life, who's ended up being named Kitty, but also War Machine, because she liked that too. And so, the couple that slays together stays together. And we've played out of 100 games. She's probably kicked my butt at 89 of them, but I don't try to say that out loud on the internet. Too late.
All right, we'll definitely edit that part out. I'll leave it in.
Great.
No, that is cool, and yeah, I very, very similar experiences, definitely. I started off not so much as a gamer, but a modeler. I grew up passing by model shops a lot of the time when I was 4 or 5 years old, and would see Star Trek models, the USS Enterprise, the one from the movies, and all this other stuff. And I would always want to do those. I did model rockets and all that stuff. And I kept hearing about this game you would play on a board, which was, again, Warhammer 40K, many of our first time, but not our last time. Yes. And yeah, I got into that at a friendly local game store in Western New York when I was about 12. And I had one of those buddies who jumped on a lot of fads. Like, oh, wow, dude, everybody's playing Diablo 2. You should get into that. Okay, cool. Go to Best Buy, get Diablo 2. A month later, oh, dude, everybody's playing DBZ card game. Go get that. All right, fine. Oh, man, everybody's playing Magic. Son of a, fine. Give me a blue-red deck. Dude, everybody's playing 40K. All right, fine. My buddy lent me his Chaos Army for a couple of times, and I got into playing that. I picked it up in just about the middle of 3rd edition. I branched out into other games within the next year or two. I played Battlefleet Gothic. I played D&D. I played BattleTech. I played Vampire the Masquerade. Great little RPG there. I love that thing. And kept going from there. And, I've even as I've, got into adulthood and moving and went across the country and all kinds of other stuff, I've always kept tabletop near and dear. And the original genius for doing my channel as a YouTuber was how to stay in the hobby as an adult. And it just kind of blossomed into a lot of how to, a lot of, how do I help players? How do I help gamers? That's really what that kind of was meant to be, essentially. But I've always just stayed with the basic theme of, dude, I love playing games.
Heck yeah. And I think you and I met because man, I forget the feller who did it, but he was a creator for War Machine and Hordes. He would do kind of like man versus his webcam videos. Malorian, you remember Malorian?
Yeah, I do.
And he did kind of a, hey, let's meet other War Machine creators. And I think that was the first time I saw you. After you mentioned on his Facebook post about your channel, I hopped in and I liked what I saw and was like, this guy's a really cool guy.
Thank you, Paddy. That's so good.
I remember the first time I laid eyes on you.
Oh my goodness.
And then I think you just returned the favor, and it blossomed into the beautiful friendship that we have today.
The bromance that is what we are.
Yes.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, that was pretty much the same. I remember, God, it's been a while, but yeah, I remember being in Malorian and just meeting that first core group of content creators and other gamers, and some guys were just tagging along, but like I remember just meeting some of you guys around there. And I think my first time really seeing your stuff was jumping on some of your Facebook live streams, and you were, I remember some were just like paint and chats, and some were, I remember you'd done some terrain with your son. I think it was those like the barbarian kind of huts. You were the PVA with the paper towel. That was and genius.
I never finished that. I think I had to go to AT. And the plan was to follow up with those, but then Bjorn wasn't up for it, and so we ended up changing up, and I think that's when I started drawing on stream, because things for mutants really started kicking off right around that time.
That sounds about right. That's kind of the chronology I remember. And we had other interactions. Like we were both on Wargamer Girls Wednesday painting chats, and we'd always, oh, Bruski, hey Paddy, you know, we're just in the comments kind of having our own little thing.
Him.
Miranda's kind of like, dudes over here. I'm like, yeah, but you know, nah, she's cool.
Yeah, I miss her live stream. But with that aside, you know, talking about first loves, I used to do papercraft terrain, but I didn't actually make my own 3D terrain until I started. Well, papercraft is 3D, but like legitimate getting foam core out and carving away and putting stuff together until I played War Machine. Did you ever make anything for other than like your Star Trek model ships? Did you ever do anything for 40K when you played?
Yeah, I basically the setup we had was I had a group of friends. There were about four or five of us, and we were all in middle school going into high school. And I had, of all of them, I kind of had more free reign than the others. Like my parents loved me having my friends over. They wanted to help me out. Like my dad would just give me various stuff. Like he had an old like door that he turned into a table when he was a kid, and he still had that. And he's like, oh dude, it's like 2.5 by like 7 feet. Here you go. Just play on that. And oh wow, dude, I got a board. Come over. You know, like it would be that kind of thing. Like you would just like your mission would be to take out the Coke can, you know, like everybody else. You just kind of grab stuff and use your imagination. But I started to, I did the thing where you get the foam end cap and you turn that into a bunker. You know, I had a very fun time lighting that on fire in midday with WD-40 and forgetting it was on fire, you know, stuff like that. True story. But yeah, you know, I would start, you know, putting together like wrecks out of leftover plastic sprues and getting into I was an absolute fanboy of City Fight, and that was my like dream for a long time, is like I'm making a city table. I'm making a board that's like a proper City Fight. It's actually going to look like buildings, and it was just a bunch of styrofoam that never got painted, but it was carved out. And you know, I was doing that completely. And then, you know, much more recently, probably I blame, not blame, but War Machine definitely got me looking towards getting more creative with my terrain and scenery, and watching different guys like Black Magic Craft and Berserker Works, RFD Hobby, all these other YouTubers, Geek Gaming Scenics, Luke. These guys were all doing these phenomenal terrain projects. And I was like, I really want to get into those kind of things. And I started getting into that myself. So, you know, looking around my desk, yeah, you're going to find clumps of this spray insulation foam and pink foam, and I've got drop cloth over here, and I got a rolled up battle mat over there. Like I've become a terrainiac. It's just the thing.
A terrainiac.
You know,
you can take the boy away from the terrain.
But you can't take the terrain away from me. It's oh man. It's so easy to dive into, and I honestly, like, I'm not belittling anyone in their hobby dedication and saying so, but I think terrain is, if you're not making some, if you're not actually crafting stuff, I think you're missing out on some of the more fun that's to be had from the gaming experience, honestly.
Yeah. So hobby hero myself, I used to do terrain make days at my friendly local game store when I was down in El Paso. And there was a feller that I used to hang out with, and he would come out to all of these things, and his wife ended up, I mean, good for him, but this man persuaded and conned his wife into painting all of his miniatures. And I said, James, why don't you like painting? He's like, no, because I have no idea how to conceptualize color. Oh, are you colorblind? No, I can't conceptualize color. Kind of wrote it off. And then we're doing this hobby hero day where people can make terrain. And I was always a big fan of making Warma Hordes terrain, because you can go to any game store and get 40K terrain, but you could never go anywhere and get Warma Hordes terrain.
Yep.
And so I got to working on making tournament boards where, you know, it was like downtown Caspia and a trencher memorial and all that stuff. And people were like, wow, this is really cool. And I was like, okay, well, if you guys like that, I kind of do painting classes. I'm not a world-class painter by any stretch of the imagination, but you guys can watch me bumble around and figure it out and then maybe get some confidence to do it yourself. Oh yeah, that'd be cool. So then I did the terrain thing and I was like, well, James, I got a bunch of foam blocks here. And I think at the time I had saved all of these Talenti. Are you familiar with the gelato?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they came in like these perfect plastic little jars. And I think somewhat inspired by Commissar Gamza's Pringle Towers. These Talenti jars were the perfect girth / height without being, too thin and too tall. They were, they look like a proper 2-story building, which I don't think, unless you were in like somewhere in Caspia, you wouldn't see anything taller than that in the Iron Kingdom.
Right.
I don't think. Maybe somewhere in Sewell where the Mennite guys are. But I had all these pre-cut foam blocks, a hot glue gun, the Talenti, and I was showing him like this tower that I made that kind of looks like it's out of the Northkin issue of No Quarter Prime.
Yep.
For the trolls. And I was showing it to him and I was like, yeah, man, just kind of copy what I did. And he 36-year-old man is sitting there like, I can't do this. What do you mean you can't do it? I can't even put a picture in my brain. And then so I was like, okay, if I tell you the word apple, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And he's like, I see the text apple. What font? I don't know. I see the letters that make up the word apple. And when it's weird because when I think of apple, I can almost see the glistening red with the slight faded into yellow. I'm like, man, people's brains are just different.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to hang out with him very much longer after that, mostly because I ETS'd and had to move. But I always kind of wondered, it feels like the Nothing Beast from Neverending Story.
There's just a void of absolute indescribable nada.
Are you familiar with Neverending Story?
Yes, that book and the movies, indeed. R.I.P. Jonathan Brandis. Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
That was one of the ideas.
Yeah, and I kind of had similar. Like I was kind of that guy again. Like we ended up to the point where, my friends and I, when we got in high school, we had the opportunity to start a gaming club there. And, we had to make everything. We didn't really have any backing, but we had this old grizzled veteran of like Napoleonic type games. Like he'd been playing in the 70s or 80s or whatever, when we were all just like tykes. And, he's like, oh, heck yeah, I'll host that. Just, you got to pitch it to the principal and blah, blah, blah. So suddenly it was like, well, we need some terrain. Like, what can we actually make at school, or what can we bring to school? So the first 1 or 2 meetings, we're like, okay, cool. Bring a bunch of styrofoam, bring some paint, bring some glue, bring some flock. And we just like whipped up these pieces that just sat there for, 3 years. And it was kind of like, well, what are we playing on? What are we fighting on? We were all of the sort to have like, okay, we have a wooden table. That's going to be, that's our battlefield, and the Coke can's our objective, and our bunker is this cardboard box. And it was like, all right, we got to level up here if we're going to get some new people in. So, that day you finally got your first, hot wire cutter. Oh man, look at what this does to foam. Oh my God. You just get in that kind of a gleeful mindset, start carving away and like, dude, I made a hill. And you're like, a hill? Like, yeah, it's a hill. You're all excited, Oh man.
Legitimately, it is one of those mesmerizing things. You just can't stop watching it just slice through foam.
Oh my God. And the textures and the cuts you get out of it is just like, it's a wondrous thing to behold. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have pink foam or even regular styrofoam and you have not got a hot wire cutter yet, you don't know what you're missing. I'm just going to ASMR this for you and just kind of describe as the hot wire goes through the phone. No, I'm going to stop now.
Oh, man. Stop. It's so late and I've been drinking. I can't consent.
Oh God. But seriously,
Yeah.
here's a question. What is like the secret weapon material or tool or thing that you stumbled on that you were just like, it just game changed your terrain?
So I'm sure you've seen my dungeon tiles that I've made. I made sci-fi, kind of like an Underdark, and then I made some wooden tiles slash um cobblestone looking ones. That dollar store foam core
Mm-hmm.
definitely took it over for me. I used to just love building those. There was a feller who came out with a bunch of templates for Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were templates you could print out on 8.5 by 11 sheet. And you just tape it onto some foam core. You cut out these buildings, and they had ramps and good cover. And I started making my own with those. I can't get enough of the foam core, unfortunately. I just can't find a store that seems to stock it these days.
Mm-hmm. Same. I've noticed that out here. A lot of my art retailers are just, you can't find the same stuff. Luckily, I got some leftovers, but yeah.
I made a huge mistake. I visited my papa a couple of weeks ago, stopped in his Walmart after not being able to find it for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
They had 8 sheets of the Ready board foam core board, and like that's the brand is Ready
Ooh,
board. They
yeah.
had 8 sheets of it. I bought all 8 sheets of it, and then I left them. I left them at his house. I totally forgot to pack them.
Oh, dude.
No.
Well, hey, you're gonna visit him. You'll grab it. Just make sure you bring a big enough suitcase or cut it down.
I drive, so it's more worried about making sure there's any left by the time I come back.
Aha, indeed. I think on my end, and it's gonna sound weird, but yeah, I do use foam board. The I got a lot, like I said, from Black Magic Craft. He did a really good Underdark video using foam board, but the thing that was the biggest game changer for me was actually acrylic caulk, and how you can use that to paint and coat and what you can do with it. Like literally, his Underdark video was taking foam board and just cutting out, oblong shapes, round shapes, and making stacks. So you have this very, cave rock-esque look. And in terms of coating it and painting it, he literally mixed up acrylic painter's caulk, the really cheap stuff, like a dollar or something a tube, and paint and some sand, a little bit of PVA and baking soda, and it literally goes on and seals everything, fills all the gaps, fills all the cracks, and coats it so you then have a more durable surface. And the sand then it gives it texture. And I kept finding more videos where it's like, okay, good. You can put that on your terrain and get a cement look. You can put that on stuff and get a sandy look. That's what you make battle mats out of, believe it or not. And so that for me
Yep,
has just
I did
opened
the
up everything.
I did the canvas drop cloth with acrylic caulk battle mat. That was pretty fun.
Yep.
I used to Kitty and I before we had a table to play on, and I made those before I made the canvas drop cloth. It was masking tape on the carpet and whatever books and cans. Yeah, like you were saying with your gaming club.
Yeah, until you make it, you make do. Yeah, but seriously, game changer. I love that. I absolutely love that.
So, if I may, I don't necessarily want to retract my statement, but this is kind of where two of my hobbies collide. I used to do Dagahir, which was the high contact foam sword battles, kind of like
Yep.
LARPing if you've ever watched Role Models.
Yep.
And I was making a couple of boffers to include some shields, which I used these relatively fish-shaped looking like boogie boards for when you go swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And when I cut out the space for the handle, I saved all of that spare foam and cut it into blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I used that to make my very first ever terrain pieces, which were your basic wall template sized walls for War Machine.
Yep.
And expanded on that idea where I took a little bit of that dollar store foam core and basically I just made a footprint of it is about 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll send pictures of this to you so that way you could maybe edit it into post. But then it was just taking the idea of doing the walls like I did, taking those same blocks and being like, okay, well, if I can make walls like that, then I can almost make it look like, instead of broken fences, I guess, I can make it look like broken walls. And then I did this one where I made an archway out of some wire coat hanger.
Yeah.
And did what looks kind of like a broken down cathedral room. So by taking that coat hanger, making an arch, and then stabbing the foam bricks into it. And that terrain is about 8 years old, and I still have it.
Nice. That is indeed cool. Yeah, it's
a world traveler too. I mean, it's been from everywhere.
Man, it's amazing sometimes, like the simpler stuff will go the distance. Like you just, especially when it comes to terrain, like you don't have to get the premier brand foam board or the premier brand foam or anything like that. Like you can make stuff out of like dollar store materials. That's part of what I love about it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
If I wasn't going to say acrylic caulking, I was going to say spray insulation foam. Like it's unreal. I'll put up a picture of this, and I'm still working on some of this stuff. The infamous block of cheese with a Coke can sticking out of it is spray insulation foam, and a $5 can will get you, if you're trying to make a battle mat or a table even, and you just want to make scatter hills and rocks, a $5 can will get you a table's worth of terrain, the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember, and you could still catch that video on your YouTube.
You can. It's still there, and oddly, I think it's one of the best performing videos I have, and it just racks up above anything else, head and shoulders more views, more watches. It's a bit of a monster at this point. I'm trying to figure out how that was as widely well received as it was.
You caught lightning in a bottle
and didn't screw up my hair. Oh man,
that's right. And that's like, well, because that's one of those things that's an imagination. The Nothing Beast Killer? Mm-hmm. It doesn't require much rather than a little bit of patience, a little bit of spray foam, and just a sharp knife to form and shape those hills.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
It really was one of the simpler things that I've put down, and I've seen other guys do it. Mel the Terrain Tutor did it. I think Miscast might have done it. And it was just a really simple way to get just a chunk of terrain. And you could do the same thing with pink foam, but you'd be, gluing and stacking, and, you can do things with different materials, but just for the economy of time and the cost of it, one can table of terrain. Anybody listening, if you're trying to get terrain on the board, get a can of spray foam, make the blobs, carve them into rocks. You could do a lot worse. You could do better, but for where you're at, that's going to be your economical, here's my board, and just, coat it, paint it. Very easy, very, very simple. That is a starter project anybody can jump into. You don't need a lot of skill. You don't need a lot of tools or a lot of budget. That's just so easy.
And that's a lot of it too. If perfect is the enemy of good, then perfectly good can be the enemy of just good enough. You'd be surprised what just a little bit of success can help, just how that helps you breed more success. One of my favorite movies is have you ever seen Better Off Dead?
Yeah.
With John Cusack.
Yep.
When the French girl, she's like, you just need one little win, that's it. And then that was the ball rolling. That was pushing the avalanche over and watching it snowball into this wonderful crescendo of an ending. Mm-hmm. I tell my boys that too. It's like, man, if you ever just make your bed in the morning, and I'm pretty sure what is that, James Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, said the same thing. It's like, the first thing you can do right in the day is make your bed. It's the same thing with most everything. But I try to find those little wins and just rack them up. spray foam hills, spray foam rocks. Those are those easy wins that you can grasp at. And then you never know what you're going to snowball into.
Oh, completely. Like it's just that sense, like when you complete a table, when you complete a board, and you literally are just sitting there looking at the finished product, like even a single piece of terrain, you make your first bunker, you make your first wrecked out building, and it's a done deal. It doesn't matter if it's, going to show up at Adepticon and get pictured and shown off there. Like that does not matter. That's out the window. It's like, dude, I just made this cool little wreck thing, and now I can actually play my games, and I'm like that much more into the narrative. I'm that much more into the enjoyment of it. And it's all comer skill levels.
And this might be its own topic for another video one day too, but I live in a relatively small town. The game store is about an hour's drive one way. And just that little bit of terrain, if I brought that to my library and if I put the schedule in just to show up there consistently once a month or maybe even twice a month, if I can just make a couple little pieces of terrain, I'd have a gaming group so fast.
Oh yeah. That
People
dude,
eat that up.
That cements right there. That is the cleric to a gaming group in D&D party parlance. Basically, if you have somebody that makes terrain and actually can like make the place believable and make the setup believable, I don't care if he's a terrible DM. Like people are just gonna be like, I'm playing on that. It just rolls. Yeah, facts.
One might say true facts.
And here we have true facts about the terrain maker. The terrain maker is the one amongst you that glues the group together, quite literally, to play on his table.
Please do not assault other players with your hot glue gun.
While some people are slightly aroused by the hot glue, it's otherwise offensive and considered assault.
It reminds me of the lavender wax candle. Anyway, so what was our? We kind of melded in. We wanted to talk about who we were, so that way people kind of sort of gave a damn about listening to what we had to say.
And now they either love us or running for the hills. Yeah.
Yep. Then we wanted to talk about our first projects.
Yep.
And then we wanted
imagination killer, and kind of I think, for lack of a better word, like stops and blocks and getting over that probably is a good place to segue into at this point.
The
biggest thing I found is kind of like a piece of data applied from when I started YouTubing in general. Like a lot of people were like, oh, I have to have a good camera, I have to have a good this, I have to have a good that. And I think it's a very applicable piece of information to when you're gaming, whether it's, painting your minis or picking an army or making terrain or anything like that. It's more important to start and to do something than to have it all perfect, to have it all done and down. You know what I mean?
Totally agree with that.
I'm trying to remember. I had a friend, and he, our group was kind of interesting when we played 40K, in that we all sort of pick factions to kind of complement each other. We literally filled out all of the Specialist Space Marine chapters, and unfortunately, that was a lot of paintball games. But literally, it was like, dude, I'm playing Space Wolves. Oh, I got Blood Angels. Oh, okay. I'm gonna do Dark Angels. Then we got all the Holy Trinity. Oh yeah, cool. You do that kind of thing. And the Space Wolf player had the best paint job, and I
Nice.
was absolutely a douche one time because I was doing Dark Angels, and I was a very new painter, and I felt bad coming to the club because I did not have my paint job figured out. I was literally just like slapping green over everything and blobbing on metal for the gun and calling it done. And these guys are all like, their stuff's all flocked, and they got multiple colors, they got highlights, they're just light years ahead of me as a painter. And I would not go because I didn't have that level. And it's true, I did. And that was it was a very tough lesson in learning, but I just realized, like, I'm not having any fun like this. I might as well just go.
Yeah, I remember when I was first really trying to get into tabletop wargaming. I had a couple of people saying like, you need to paint your miniatures, but I was terrified. I was like, man, I've been wanting to get into this hobby my entire life. I was more concerned about being able to get the money to get the models than I ever was trying to figure out how I was going to paint them.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I was sitting on a bunch of Dark Angels, putting them together, and I played a couple of, Slay the Gray plastic games.
Yep.
And I was just I was terrified that the moment I try to put some primer on them, I was gonna just ruin them. I was gonna blob it on. It was gonna be the "Do you still love me, brother? Be strong for the emperor." I didn't want to do that because I was like, man, I don't have the money. And I remember I never painted a Space Marine until well after I got out of 40K.
Yeah.
But I did paint Necrons, and I did it with metallic Sharpies.
Oh, FTW for the win.
Yep, spray painted rattle candle black, and then went in there with silver Sharpie. And I think I even had one of those like neon Sharpies. So I remember buying a little can, a little pot of what is it, White Scar, and hating myself for even trying to do that because I had zero brush control. I mean, I painted, I did acrylic paintings before, lots of them, but painting a miniature was something different. I used to slop acrylic paints on because I wanted the texture. It's like, oh, the texture is already on the model, and I don't want to, thin your paint, Paddy.
That moment when you realize you're killing detail. Oh God. I think the first time I really put effort into a model, I had the metal Ezekiel, the librarian character for Dark Angels. And I literally, it was the first model I looked at. I'm like, this is a thing of beauty. I cannot just slap paint on it. I can't just use my testers and enamels and just drown the thing. And I did not have a brush that could handle that kind of detail. I'm like, how am I going to paint his eye? How am I going to paint the detail on his sword? How am I going to paint the little ram skull on his bracers? And I was like frantically searching around my house. I literally ended up taking like a sewing pin and sticking it on the end of like a pencil or something and just getting the most infinitesimal little bit of paint on the end of this thing and just dabbing that ever so gingerly, like, oh, a little bit, oh, shit, too much, just like it was hilarious. And at the time I was so amazed by it. And then I found out they made brushes that small and I felt like an idiot, but yeah,
it's amazing. And now here we are, after years of having a couple of really bad models and showing up to the store with a fully painted army, or trying to.
Still trying to.
Now we're showing off our mediocre paints and getting a little bit of love and recognition for it. And, people just appreciate the effort most of the time.
Yeah, because you will still run into those guys where a lot of environments it's still acceptable not to paint at all, and there's guys who will build the army just to go play the game, and you just gray army, okay, you don't look twice at it, but they look at yours like, dude, that is awesome.
Yeah, what was that? Wasn't there, I can't remember if it was a Penny Arcade comic, but it's like, oh, these warriors came from over the hill, and some of them were they had no heads, they had no arms, and they were all just the gray death.
Oh man, I think it was Penny Arcade, and I remember I'm trying to remember what it was. It was this fan animated. It was really crude, like Flash animation stuff back in the like early 2000s, but it was like the space agents or something. It was a knockoff of Marines. You rolled a 10 on a 6-sided dice. Well, good for you. And it's just like, our mission is to take out that Coke can. Yesterday it was a floor or something. And then these like gray models are painting or speaking up like, oh, don't make fun of the terrain. At least you're painted. At least you're assembled.
You fools. I gotta find that. I was not aware earlier when you were making that reference. I thought you were just making it up. I was like, yeah, attack the Coke can. I throw magic missile at the darkness. Yep, that checks.
I'm wearing a drunk that wearing that gets me +1 to drunk ogres. Am I getting drunk? Yes, you're getting drunk.
If there's any girls there, I want to do them.
Mountain Dew for you. Oh God, such good times. Oh man.
I mean that's the first step to killing the imagination killer. You gotta kill the imagination killer before it kills you.
Yeah.
And taking the first steps is
it's one of those hurdles to get over, and you just got to do it and go, good. This model is not going to be something that graces the cover of a magazine. I probably am not going to win a painting contest, but I'm going to start and I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow from there.
I have a unit of stone bears that I never repainted, not because I didn't want to at the time, because I did, but I think I was watching Uncle Adam on Tabletop Minions, and he was saying something about being glad that he never got rid of his first miniatures because he can look at how far he's come. Because I think the very first paint job I ever did was on, I can't remember if it was the Juggernaut or if it was on Krios. They were pretty close together when I did them.
War Machine, yep.
They were not good. I mean, they were good because they were painted. Hold on to that. Internalize that. Yep. They were good because they were painted. But and I've made a lot of new friends on the Twitters in the past couple of months. And I realized that a lot of them were like, yeah, I've always wanted to paint. I just was too afraid to sit down and do it and fail at it. And I'm like, man, I remember failing hard at it, but being freaking proud of myself. And now to this day, yeah, again, I'm not winning any awards, but I love my shelf. I love my shelf with all my painted minis. I love running a tabletop game. And like, I remember having some of my soldiers come out to my game store, and they've never been to one, but they had kind of heard of D&D. One guy was like, oh yeah, I played when I was deployed, and bring them in there. And I think I was playing Gamma World 7th edition, which was basically 4th edition D&D set to Gamma World flavor.
Yep.
And I used my Sea King as the big bad evil guy.
Good choice. Good choice.
Because they were in a sewer. They were in a sewer system. And when I put that Sea King on the table, they were like, oh.
It's such a baddie.
On it. It was awesome.
Oh,
so cool.
Well, yeah, there was like there were always those points where somebody got that model that was just it just made it was so impressive to behold. Like among my friends, like one guy, his grandparents would just like throw money at him, and he like we're all just getting our first like in Warhammer, just getting our first like Marine squads. Like, oh, dude, I got a jet bike, I got a land speeder. This guy shows up with a Land Raider, and you're just like, oh my god.
This kid's like the arms race for 40K.
Pretty much. And then you found out you had a really hard time killing that because you're the biggest thing you were packing was a plasma gun. And it was like, it's not quite gonna do it. Yeah.
How unfortunate you didn't take any melters.
You brought a knife to a futuristic nuclear gunfight. Oh god, those tears were real. Oh man. But yeah, who was it? Was it Wayne Gretzky? You miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Oh, for sure.
That is absolutely, ask anyone, like what's the bare bones, most basic advice to someone starting out in a hobby like this? Like what's the overriding principle you have to think with a lot of the time? I would happily hedge my bets. That's it.
Oh yeah, and I mean, take a look at just this podcast. We were talking about. I think I've got a decent mic here, but trying to figure out what software we're going to use, and then you and I just hopped on a chat. I mean, this is the first time that we've talked on a call. We've texted on Instagram. We've been on each other's live streams, commented on your YouTube videos.
We did.
And so eventually it was like, I'm just going to take a leap.
Yeah. And, you know, for the audience, because you're not probably seeing all this, but I'm, you know, we just have some basic microphones and we're on Zoom. We're literally using Zoom's recording. And if anything, I'm just editing a little bit audio wise in post, and that's about it. You know, we're not doing Podcastle or something, you know, high end like that. It's we just good. We're here. We got time. Good. We're starting. That was it. That was the gist of it.
Yep.
And you know, that is a huge thing. You have to start. You just have to do it. You know, just Nike yourself. Get a little Shia LaBeouf in your head.
Slam that G Fuel.
Slamming that G Fuel.
Sip. You don't want the heart rate to explode. But what is it? It's if anybody has ever done it in the entire history of man, that means it's humanly possible. And if it's humanly possible, that means at worst it's going to be difficult, but it'll get easier as time goes on. Always.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, insert motivational quote here. You know, if you're in hell on something, if you're struggling on something, well, keep going. You don't want to stop in hell.
Oh yeah, no, it's way too hot there.
Yeah, this is not a day spa. What the heck?
Can't stop here. This is backcountry.
Yeah, no, there's no parking. Can't you read the sign?
Did you read the sign?
Did you read the sign? Conan the Librarian. Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
What was it I was watching the other day? Oh man. Oh, it was 8-Bit Christmas. The teacher is in there.
Oh,
the teacher's
God.
like, this is the Dewey Decimal System. Now you better learn this, because the next time you need to go research something, you don't know this, you're not going to be able to find it.
The pre-Wikipedia days. Ooh. Legit skills you should have, kids. Well, I don't know about you, man. What else you got? I don't know.
Whatever our current personal news is, and then maybe we can round out with little less personal news, stuff that's going on in the hobby sphere for tabletop gaming, and so on and so forth. I mean, like I think you kind of opened up with, you were trying to do some proofreading and editing for my skirmish game Mutants, which will be coming out relatively soon. I'm aiming for, let's see, next weekend is spring equinox, so that's a pretty cool day for me. It'd be sweet to get it around that. But book's been in the works for a couple of years. Started off in a composition book as I was deployed and writing down notes for what I think would sound as a cool game. And now it's very, very concrete and very real.
Indeed, as I can bear witness to, because I've seen it.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for that. And once that comes out, I'll be taking a little bit of a break as my family here kind of gears up and gets our garden in order. And then as soon as April's over, man, I'm going to be hitting it so hard again. I've got a version of War Machine and Hordes that's kind of in the flavor of one-page rules in the works. I've got another tabletop war game that I've actually been working on for longer than Mutants. Yeah, it's funny, dude. I had 3 of those composition notebooks. I bought them in a 3-pack. I was like, oh, well, I might fill up one day. Let's find out. Well, no, one definitely became the filter for which every rule that I would write down over the course of the day, at work when I had time or whatever, if it didn't feel like it fit into that set of rules, I would put it into this other book and hold on to. And then that's how Mutants became a game. Was I had a role-playing game and 2 tabletop war games going. One of them I scrapped completely, but all between those 3 games, all of the crummy rules that didn't fit formed its own game. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's funny how, sometimes literally you'll just like, dude, I'm filling up a composition notebook, and there it becomes a game. There it becomes a whole thing. just notes, and that's all it is. But yeah, that absolutely looking forward to Mutants. I'm glad to be helping you with that, and that is going to be an absolutely phenomenal game. And I can't wait. It would probably be really cool, and maybe this is something else we can somehow collab on. Like, let's make you some scenery sets. Let's get you some stuff you can go, hey dude, here's an example board, here's an example of this. Like, let's make you some good stuff for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That getting some glamour shots to put on like blog posts and I mean just kind of battle reports. I would really like to do a tutorial video on how to play. That'd be sweet.
Absolutely. So yeah, and it's it's not a massive table. You don't need a lot of stuff for it. That it seems to me that would be pretty simple to come up with something for, and really just have a good solid set of terrain and a good looking set of minis, and you're in like Flynn.
Yeah, and a lot of the idea was for how the grid is set up and how small the board is, and when you're trying to get a war game in and you're cradling an infant in one arm and you're trying to like fidget around with a measuring tape in the other. It's like,
little tough. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a little tough. I'm gonna drop this baby so I can get this 1/8 of an inch.
A couple years later, you're like, Daddy, why did I talk funny? Well, honey, I needed to roll a 6 that day.
That's right. I needed to make sure that my charge lane was open, and you were getting really heavy on that one arm, kiddo. Sorry for your luck. Did you win? No. I've been playing this game for 10 years and I'm still trash at it.
That's also why your brother's nickname is 6+.
No, you'll be able to find. That's right. You'll be able to find the book at Big Geek Emporium. That's where I'll be publishing everything. Mutants is going to be a free product, so there's zero commitment that is required on the player's part to buy and play the game. So that's something to mention.
Yep. And is it 28 mil scale models?
It's 28 to 32. I mean, I wouldn't go, and it's miniatures agnostic.
Yeah.
So your Necromunda models, Dead Zone, Romantic, if you play that. I think before we actually started recording, we were talking about Warlord's game. Is it Beyond the Gates of Antares?
Yep, that's the one.
Sounds right. Yeah. Those would work. Because I think Mantic is typically true 28 versus like your GW or your Privateer Press is going to be heroic 28 or heroic 32.
Yeah.
Scale creep is a thing. So it's played on a grid system. Just so long as you and your opponent are happy with each other's base sizes, and you're more or less good to fly.
That's what struck me. It's very user friendly. It's not simple in any way derogatory sense of the word. It's very intuitive. It's very organic. It's very easy to just jump into without thinking a lot of the time about the rules and thinking about how this is all going to go. It's very user friendly. It's a delight. It's very refreshing as a rule set to read through. That instantly jumped out at me. So very well done on that, Paddy.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. On my end, I mean, good Lord, the biggest thing, and I'm kind of mad scientisting on this, I got very inspired by Warbuddy's Jericho Reach Warcaster campaign, and I picked up starter sets for myself and my fiance, and I'm trying to come up with terrain for that. And once I started coming up with terrain for that, I started making battle mats, started making scatter, and I all of a sudden started developing the idea of a campaign in my head. So I'm actually going to attempt, I've not done bat reps as videos yet. I'm going to attempt getting some of this fleshed out, getting my minis painted, and getting a campaign going, because the concept, very much, I grabbed a notebook and started jotting down and writing up. It's weird kind of how terrain focused it, but I literally came up with the content, what the campaign's going to be based on what the boards are going to look like and where I'm going to be fighting. and then coming up with how I'm going to build all that. So look for that in the very near future. You're going to see some stuff I don't think very many people have ventured into trying before on a tabletop game, but we're gonna, baby.
That'll be awesome. Yeah, and like you were saying, inspiration, killing that imagination killer. It's gonna come when you manifest it. And you're gonna make something one day that's really gonna spark your imagination, like, oh my gosh, this is my eureka, this is my epiphany, this is my revelation. And then hopefully, your new idea is gonna spread like wildfire and help other people realize, the imagination they've had within them this entire time.
Yeah, it's really funny. You don't always think about it, but it's almost more important to do stuff so you awaken the genius in other people too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think on my end, that's what I got going. I'm just working on my marchers and my ISA. I've got some I'm trying out some new basing paste and some new paints from Huge Miniatures. I really like their range so far, and trying some new things with the basing there. But that's really what I got going in a nutshell.
Yeah. Man, I've as soon as I fell into my rut of I still use P3s metallics, and then I got stuck on GW's contrast paints.
Yep.
I can't say that I've tried anything new. I tried I love what is this? Pro Acryl's Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl.
Yep.
I really like their paint range. Their titanium white, super solid. Got the coal black. Those paints have the best, like, of the stark colors, the white and black. Yep. Best coverage. I love the bottle they come in. Comes with a mixing bead in it. I tried their black primer. I'm sure it works really good through an airbrush, but it's advertised as being brush on.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. It took me about 4 coats to prime some pygmy trolls, and if you're familiar with pygmy trolls, I mean, they're smaller than your average small based human. And if it takes you 4 to 5 coats brushing on a primer to prime a miniature, if you're painting
what are you doing?
Arm, yeah. Too long.
What are you doing?
And it chips really bad. So I 4 coats, and then if I put like a coat of like a varnish on there, I'm sure it'd be fine. Or maybe if I just go straight to painting, it would be fine. But I mean, I could barely rub my finger across some of it and it chips right off. So
somewhere Duncan,
that's all I've tried new. And
I will laugh someday if Duncan Rhodes is listening to this and he's 4 coats, bloody hell.
And I met Jason, the guy that runs Monument Hobbies at Valhalla, and he's a super swell guy. Man, him and I wish I could remember his camera guy, but they both paint really well. And I really like him as a human being. So I'm going to keep buying their paint and then just forward on my critique about their black primer. Like I said, it's intended to be an airbrush thing. I don't have an airbrush, so I can't really bash on them too much. But
yeah,
let's see. There's hobby news. You want to talk about a little bit of hobby news? We have Dante making its way into a rogue package.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Blood Angels Chapter Master Commander Dante has been spotted, leaked, if you will, and I'm not talking about his adult diapers, onto someone's page. There is a new model incoming. He's still gold. He's still got a jump pack and an axe, and he does not seem to be Primarist unless they just changed how that's going to look.
You forgot to add tactical rocks, man. Tactical rocks are where it's at.
He now has a tactical rock that he is precariously perched upon.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody did a really funny edit. I think it was on Twitter, and they literally had it like he diagonaled on the rock, so he looks like he's falling off. Like,
oh no,
oh god, the memes are coming.
I used to have a platoon sergeant, and he would talk about seeing his guys come out of the armored personnel carrier, and you'd hear, like, just in the back of your head, you'd hear the Go Army trumpets and theme music, and then they trip at the very end of the ramp.
Ooh.
And you just hear the record skip. Every time I see a tactical rock, I'm like, man, you're really taking a chance on that rock.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that basing choices, and we've seen some really that, and I think what was it, Shrike the Raven Guard guy, the new Primaris version of him, and he's on this like half a little bit of a bunker or something, but not super.
Gerard Way as a Space Marine.
Yeah, that's just kind of like, I don't know about these basing choices, G-Dub, but hey. Anyway, we got that, and we've obviously got the leak news on 10th edition 40K around the corner. Supposedly going to be a Space Marine and Tyranid's box set, going with everybody's favorite video game, Space Marine. Oh boy.
You can't blame them for their marketing techniques, right?
Nope.
I mean,
You cannot.
Like we said in our introductory alone, both you and I got into the hobby because of 40K.
Yep.
So I'm not going to look down at somebody who's like, oh, you fell prey to everyone's first girlfriend, 40K, did you? If it gets people into the hobby, that's awesome.
Yeah. To their credit, Games Workshop and Warhammer 40K, it's been around longer. It has more exposure. It has a track record. I can hate on the rule system, or I can hate on codex creep and all these other things all I want, but ultimately that is the thing that got me in the game. So gotta tip my hat to it. And I will always love the lore, dude. Will always love Horus Heresy. So not gonna knock that too badly. I'm kind of optimistic. Northern Exile on his channel did a whole thing. Hey, GW 10th, is this going to be something great, or is that absolutely going to be a steaming pile of kitty litter? And just kind of, I would like to be optimistic that just maybe we can go back to some of the fun and some of the quality we enjoyed a couple editions ago. And I'm going to be excited, honestly. I'm happy to see it's happening, and I think we can stay tuned with not full protective face gear and just see what's going to happen.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, but if I may, on this most wonderful of Thursday evenings,
You may.
What they did to Kill Team, I'll never forgive them. Like, having been partially in and getting into 40K and then getting out and then being drugged back in with Shadow War Armageddon. Remember that, Jim?
I do indeed.
So Shadow War Armageddon, I was so enthused for it. I was very excited for it. And then it came out at the tail end of whatever, I think it was 8th edition. And then when 9th came out, there was like stirs and rumors about them redoing Kill Team, because Heralds of Ruin was doing a really good job at keeping it alive. Now I don't even hear anything about Heralds of Ruin, but Kill Team is still going strong. Meanwhile, the way that they market and sell those boxes, oh man, for the pauper gamer, the dad who just wants to game on a weekend, and it's like $200 box sets every quarter. Oh, rough.
Ouch.
And then the weird fetish with the symbols, it's like, oh, you can move triangle or square or octagon. Just tell me if it's 1, 2, or 6 inches.
Yeah.
So I know that they're gonna do what they think is best, what they think is gonna keep the game alive. I have no doubt about that. I'm not sure what the Venn diagram, how relevant those have become these days. The Venn diagram of what they like versus what we like looks like.
Possibly, the John Krasinski meme has replaced it. Yeah.
Yeah. Venn diagrams, they're so great.
Man. All I'm going to say there is I agree with you on Kill Team, and remember that has its counterpart on one-page rules.
Yes, I do love me some one-page rules, man.
It's
for some people, such a solid system.
For some people, that is the way to go. Love the lore, love the models, don't love what they did to this or that. One-page rules, baby. One-page rules.
And then for our other love, War Machine, I noticed that I don't notice a lot of people talking about it a whole lot anymore. Insert Privateer Press dead game meme here if you really want to. It's alive in the hearts of those who want it to be. Um, Pirate Trolls. Did you see those?
Pirate Trolls.
Pirate Trolls.
Oh yes, the Hordes faction.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, what was that? The Insider? They kind of did the reveal on that.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was an insider or they did the Prime cast or whichever.
I know they did that, and I know they're officially on. Like, we have the logo, we have them, they're on the lineup. I think that was a natural progression with them. Like, okay, good. Let's, we have Orgoth Sea Raiders. Let's take them to sea. Like, how's that going to go? And I was even stoked on the sort of metamorphosis of what Legion of Everblight's coming with the two sisters. You see that one?
I haven't seen that at all.
I am very sorry to my listeners. I'm forgetting the name, but it's sort of a combined. It's going to be a Hordes faction, and I can't remember the specific ins and outs of it. But two of the warlocks from Legion essentially joined forces and split off a bit and did their own thing. And one of them kind of looks more Legion dark elfy, and one of them looks a little more steampunky. And I think they're just kind of meeting in the middle. But that is the other faction teased for the Horde's end of War Machine. Now that it's all War Machine. Oh boy.
Now that it's all War Machine.
Now that everything is machines.
And that's fine. I can't complain about GW on one hand saying, "Hey, you need to buy 2 to 3 rule books in order to play my game," and then look at Privateer Press and be like, "Oh, but I love your 2 books."
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, I'm kind of glad that they're condensing it all down. That they have condensed it all down. I'm still a little salty about the slow rollout, but I will remain optimistic because it was best girlfriend for a long time.
Indeed.
And it deserves my patience because it was patient enough to wait around for me to to latch on to that game.
Oh, absolutely. That we can look at that all we want, but then we kind of have to go back to the whole, well, we didn't start a miniature company, we didn't do this, we're not the ones doing that. They are, and they are doing it despite the pandemic, and despite not having certain guys around, the dev team moving on in part, and all this other stuff. Like, they're still doing it. And I think some games, probably more than others, deserve more latitude. I think War Machine, for its track record, deserves the latitude of, good, let's let the models roll out, let's get some games going, really give this a try. And you say insert dead game meme here. I know people are going to, but absolutely not. No, far from it. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time before it's, you have 6, 7 factions, and you have variety coming up. You have tournaments again. You have steamrollers, and you're really going to see what it takes off from there.
Oh yeah, and that's a lot of it too, is getting, like, just hitting those conventions and tournaments. Getting Iron Gauntlet back and all that. Like, I'm actually within a reasonable drive time of Iron Gauntlet now, and am a relative decent ability to take the time off to go do that. And I still don't think they're doing it right. I don't think they've got one planned this year. I think they said far out they have to plan and schedule and reserve rooms and stuff.
Yep. I mean, that, and even looking at, like, not necessarily cons, but events like Valhalla in the fall. Like, damn well by that time of this year, there's going to be some War Machine games going.
Yeah. And Miranda could have been a huge community face for them. I did. Miranda is a friend of mine, and we talked a little bit about it. She's a super lovable person, super sweet. She I was asking her, I was like, why doesn't Privateer Press support you guys more often? And she's like, well, we kind of just do whatever, and our viewership is a little low. And I'm like, well, viewership is low for all of Privateer Press's games. And she's very optimistic about a lot of stuff, and she definitely deserves a lot of praise. Um, to be brutally honest, and I have nothing against budgies. I love budgies.
Hmm.
I was kind of surprised that Privateer Press chose to work with budgies before someone like Miranda, because Miranda's been around for how long.
Years.
And I mean, really, Miranda is what helped get Kitty. Yeah, Kitty, when she saw Miranda playing, not saying that my wife would need somebody else's approval to do something, but she was like, oh yeah, this is a thing that girls can do. And my wife played Magic for a really long time, but she hadn't been playing Magic for long enough at the time to be like, oh yeah, this is something that I can get into. And then when she saw Miranda do it, it was like, oh, this is a whole new world for me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, I mean,
um,
I fully agree with that. And thinking back to when I first looked into Warcast or God, War Machine, and who were the first bat reps I saw? It wasn't Advanced Maneuvers, it wasn't the Privateer Press staff throwdown or anything. It was Wargamer Girl. And those, how many people have said like those set the standard for War Machine bat reps? Her
it
style
set the
of filming.
standard for bat reps at all.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about, because mini wargaming, Matt and Dave,
Yep.
really cool guys. I love what they've done for the hobby. Witty banter, which I enjoy, is not the same as getting that in Compotech music and getting it narrated to you almost like a book.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty happy to know Miranda and to have hung out with her and talked to her about that stuff. And I mean, Kitty and I are in one of her battle reports.
Oh, I gotta go dig
Yeah,
that up.
we did we did the Company of Iron battle port, Trolls versus Grimkin, and my wife kicked my butt for all of YouTube to see.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wargamer Girl, Company of Iron Bat Rep, go see that right now.
Yeah. So
I probably don't. I've had words with Miranda. I probably don't know her as well as you, but very, very kind, very helpful soul, absolute gem of an individual. And yeah, like it really did surprise me too that not even just from a standpoint, like, YouTubers, you look at subscribers, Instagram, you look at followers, and she definitely has a following. I don't know. I think her just playing the game and doing what she does, it's gonna impact our marketing. It's gonna impact the promotion. It's gonna impact the spread of the game. It's not always the guys with the sponsors, and it's not always the guys that are signing the NDAs and know everything that push that forward. I've found, and I think a lot of people still look to Wargamer Girl. Honestly, I do, for sure.
And they should. And I don't even think it's a War Machine thing so much as, like I said, she set the standard for bat reps across the board. And Budgies, man, he's got a little something special floating around in his brain to come up with those very well thought out narrative campaigns. So I do need to give him a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
I think the only thing that Miranda did differently than him was play the game as it was written in the books. But yeah, the what was it, the Jericho campaign? I don't think it was Fall of Jericho, was it? It was just
Jericho Reach.
Jericho Reach. There it was. Yeah, Autumn's Fall. Anyway, Jericho Reach was a pretty cool watch. His named characters But then his bat reps again, not trying to take credit away from him, but imagine if he would have done all those narrative intros and then done a Wargamer Girl style narrative battle report that it like never took you out of the story. You were just in the story the entire time. I mean, you could put that up as a podcast and just listen to it just as well as you can watch it roll out.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, tabletop gaming is a very visual thing, but I agree. You could listen to it Wargamer Girl style. You could listen to that and you would know what's going on and know what's back and forth. And Warcaster as a game lends itself to that because you're not having to keep track of so many things. You can only activate 2 things per turn. You can only do 2 bits of cipher cards in a turn, and there's only so many turns per pulse round, and usually if you're playing small games it's like three back and forth and you're done. It lends itself to that cinematic sort of style, and his a lot of times when you see him moving stuff, he's not measuring it out, he's just kind of eyeballing it, and he's very rule of cool. He even says like, yeah, that we're doing it theatrically because that's how we roll on this channel, and that is the cool part. I love that he does that. But the visual part of it, I think he took a page from Wargamer Girl's book. But either way, I love his campaign. Awesome paint jobs, very very striking but simple paint jobs, and very good quick terrain sets. I mean, that if you had to point to somebody to aspire to in terms of their setups and getting going and all that stuff, that's War Budgies had a really good setup on that, I gotta say.
And to round out, to circle back, Imagination Killer Slayer, because the guy couldn't find anybody to play with. What does he do? He analytically plays against himself in a way that's worth watching. Most people are like, not only do you play with yourself, but you play tabletop board games with yourself. I watch Budgies do it. I don't, say what you want, but it was worth the watch. It was worth the listen.
Yeah, and that is not always easy to do because ultimately you get that little bias in your own head. Like it's like playing chess against yourself, or playing playing Magic against yourself to like test out a deck or something. You're kind of biased, like, yeah, I love that beat down red and green, but I want Counterburn to win, and you get that going, and you just get a huge leaning one way or the other. And he manages not to do that, which is it's a phenomenal ability to one man band like he's doing. You don't walk in going, he loves ISA, they're going to win. No, there are several bat reps where, Budgies, we love you, but your ISA got their ass handed to him. And it was just a thing, the rebels took the day.
And it was all for the better, compelling story too.
Totally. And the campaign made sense. It wasn't, okay, even though these guys lost everything, they won the campaign. Like, no, he didn't do that. That was, he knows how to run a campaign ethically, if I put it that way, and you know what I mean. It occurs to me, we know some very talented people, and I'm not even jumping the guest star route or anything like that, but we could literally do an entire episode like, who inspired us, what did they have, who are the guys that we say go see, like that could be a podcast in and of itself, man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And hey, maybe that's the next one, I don't know.
Like those self-perpetuating machines. That's what we've just done. We've now come up with all of the topics that we need to talk about on the next get together, Bruski and Paddy.
Absolutely. Did you guys come up with notes? Did you storyboard it out? No, we came up with it in the podcast before, and you're listening.
That's right.
Well, yeah, I think that's our cue to sort of put a bow on this one. So, Paddy, as always, man, I love working with you. Love talking to you. I love your work, and this has been some of the most fun I've had in quite a while.
Well, that's awesome, Bruski. I'm super glad that we just did this, and I super look forward to the next one, and super look forward to seeing what people say and think about it, and hopefully we can share more of our thoughts with you soon.
Absolutely. Minimally, I'm going to be putting this up on my YouTube. I'll get a copy of it over to Paddy. He can put it up on Facebook in different. We'll get it up in a few different areas, but you know, we're just spitballing. We kind of just threw this together, so we'd love feedback, or if you have questions, you have ideas, we're obviously open to those as well. So if you want to get down with this, or you want to ask us a question, by all means, feel free. This is not something where we have a concrete format. Then we're definitely looking to move forward with it.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Again, Paddy, thanks for coming in and making this happen. It's fairly late on both our ends. This will go up at some other point, but yeah, you guys just listening to flash in the pan here. So, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Night, Bruski. Night, everybody.